Welcome to A Seat at the Table, a podcast powered by The Ice House, a place for courageous conversations empowering diversity and community in business. You are part of the conversation and have as much to say as anyone else.
Bridget Snelling, country manager of Xero here in New Zealand, a mother to three, an authentic leader, strategic marketer with a strong creative, commercial, and culture focus. She's passionate about providing amazing digital tools for small businesses in Aotearoa and what this unlocks for them and the economy. Prior to Xero, Bridget held various strategic marketing and leadership positions at TVNZ, Orion Health, and ANZ. Welcome, Bridget. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Bridget, we love starting with this question. It's an open one. Who is Bridget? What are you passionate about? And what does life look like now?
With me, it's what you see is what you get. So who am I? So I am a mother, first and foremost, of three beautiful kids. My son, Tommy, just turned 13, so I have a teenager in the house. And then I have two daughters, 10 and 6. 10-year-old's definitely going on 19, I would say. And I'm married to my husband, Ben, and I am a very strong family person, so I have obviously my husband and kids, but I have a really amazing broader family, a brother and sister, and my parents both still, and there are between all of us 9 grandchildren. So we have, and we're all in Auckland, which is amazing. So we have a very strong family. So I guess they are my key focus. And then outside of my family, I love lots of things. I love movies, I love reading, I love traveling. I love my dog and walking and sort of being out in nature with my dog. I love having a good time. I love my friends. I love food and wine. So I basically just love life. Life is very busy though, for like all working parents. Life is pretty chaotic. And actually, my oldest friend always says to me, I could never have your life. I could never have 3 kids. Like, she's got 2 kids and that's enough. And she said, lucky you love chaos so much. And I never thought of myself as loving chaos. But as I get older, I realise that I do actually quite like chaos, which is kind of odd, but I think that's the only way you cope with a busy working life. The chaos of 3 kids is, I love that actually. That's me.
Sounds like a lot of people, work defines them, and it sounds like work doesn't define you. How do you do that?
Yeah, I think work definitely doesn't define me. I do love working though. And so growing up, my mum is a dietitian. Well, she's retired now, but she was a dietitian, but she didn't go back to work until I was 20. But she taught my sister and I to always have a career and be independent. So for me, it was just never an option that I wouldn't work once I had kids. It just never occurred to me. And also, I like to say I'm a worker. I really get a lot of joy and purpose out of my work and having something for myself. But work, it doesn't define me, I think, because when it comes to life and priorities, my family is definitely top of the list. And so I would always put them first, but I definitely love having a career and doing something that I'm passionate about, because obviously we spend a lot of time at work, so I think that's really important. But yeah, I'd like to think I'm more than just my job.
Yeah, that's great.
Have you always been like, what you see is what you get?
Yeah, unfortunately so, I think. I have. I remember as a kid, I loved listening to like Solid Gold FM or whatever, and my sister would say to me, "Oh, you're so uncool. It's kind of cool." I am. I think I'm a really authentic person, and sometimes I don't have a good filter, which is, sometimes I tend to overshare, and that's always been the way I am. And, that can be endearing, or it can be a bit too much for some people. So, but what you see is what you get. That's one of the things I don't like it when I feel like someone's acting or putting on a front to me, or, I think that's always just been, in my family, we've never had a tolerance for that kind of thing. And I grew up in a family where, everyone, I was the youngest child, I am the youngest child, so you have to sort of fight for your place. And I think just, being me and being quite loud was how I did that.
We like to ask about, the highlights
of someone's life, but also the deep valley moments. Is there one of each that springs to mind for you in terms of your life and your career?
Gosh, yes, absolutely. I mean, both professionally and personally. So I'll start with the professional. So I started my career as a lawyer. I actually wanted to be a filmmaker growing up.
Wow.
And I still absolutely love film and writing. But I went to an all-girls school and I was academic, and so I was told, you can be a doctor or a lawyer. And my parents were kind of horrified at the thought that I might go off to do the communications course at AUT, because at that time it was AIT, it wasn't a university. And so my parents said, oh, no, you've got to go to a university. And so my sister had done law, my brother did law, my dad's a retired GP, so he did take me to the med school. And I thought about it for about 5 seconds, but as I walked around, the lovely man who showed us around, I mean, this is so quite tragic, and it shows you I was only 17 at the time, had really bad halitosis. And so in my mind, I thought, well, that is a sign from the universe that this is not for me. So my dad did say, well, you were my last hope of going into medicine, and obviously, if you really wanted it, that wouldn't be a barrier, So I ended up going to law school, and I don't regret it at all, because I think my legal training was really, really good, and I did a BA LLB, so honours. So I did my honours in privacy law, which is kind of random when I think about what I'm doing now. But it was great training, and then I worked in corporate law for a couple of years. Anyway, so that's a long way of telling you that I worked in corporate law for the first 2 years, and I worked in a big firm, and I worked for a great partner, but we did work, ridiculous hours. And I remember every Friday, basically, it would be 4:59, and I'd be thinking, yes, I'm going to go up to drinks in a minute. And then an email would come through from my partner saying, whatever has happened, all hands to the pump this weekend. And my heart would sink. And after 2 years of that, and also, to be honest, I saw a lot of stuff in that law firm that didn't align with my values. And there were only a couple of female partners at the time. Actually, my sister ended up being one of them. She's no longer a partner there, but she was. And I thought to myself, these are people, I don't want to grow up to be these people. And I always thought, walking around the law firm, how everyone just kind of had a grey pallor to them. Like, it's just that, that client service and that high expectation, the long hours. I mean, my first transaction I ever worked on, I think I had maybe it was a BlackBerry. It was the early days of having a phone. And I remember going to bed at maybe midnight and being told, we will message or call when the next turn of the document comes through. Be ready. And I was so freaked out I was going to sleep through that I barely slept all night. And my parents, I was living with my parents at the time, they said, this is so insane. Like, what are you doing? But it is, at least it was then, the norm. So anyway, long story short, I decided, I met my husband actually, and was like, I quite like this guy. If I don't leave this firm, I'm never going to see him. So I need to make a change. So I randomly, the way the universe works, I went to a function, met someone who ran a PR firm, and then the next day he called me and said, hey, you mentioned you're thinking about getting out of law. Do you want to come work for me? I was like, I have no idea what I will do in a PR firm, but sure, yeah, great. So I resigned and I left, and that was at the end of the year. So the following year I started in my new role in this PR firm, and that day I bumped into 4 of the male partners from the firm where I'd worked. And it was a really defining moment for me, because one of them said to me, oh, look at you. You've really fallen off the career elevator, haven't you? And I just remember thinking, God, I'm 25, and you're, I don't know how old he was, like in his early 40s. I remember thinking, what is it about you that makes you want to put me down and make me feel insignificant? And it was that kind of thing that ultimately actually turned me off, and I thought that validated my decision to leave. So, long way of telling you about a low point in my career. And a high point in my career is actually what I'm doing now. I really love my job at Xero, being country manager. It's an honour to lead an amazing team. We have a fabulous product, a really exciting business globally. I was at a dinner with our board last night, and I sat next to one of our board members who's also on the board of the New York Times. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. And I felt so embarrassed. My first thing was, I subscribe to the New York Times. And he was like, oh, great. I thought, oh, Bridget, you're like a little fangirl. What are you saying? But I feel so privileged to be in the company of like really exquisite people globally. You know, I meet with people based in San Francisco, Boston, and they're so intelligent and incredible. And I think, wow, from a company that started in Rod Drury's living room, you know, we're now this amazing global company and have attracted talent from all around the world, people. And so that, you know, it's such a highlight and privilege for me to be doing my current role. So they're kind of the highs and lows professionally, but personally. And I think, you know, this is something I do talk really openly about because it's really relevant, especially to women. Big low light for me was having breast cancer a few years ago. So I got diagnosed in July 2021, really out of the blue, no family history. I mean, to be honest, I barely had breasts, so the irony of getting breast cancer was like really, I remember first thinking, how can I get breast cancer? I've barely got boobs. But anyway, turns out you can. And so that, you know, that was a really crazy moment. My youngest was 3 years old. It was a big shock. And I'd had my first ever mammogram just because I thought I should once I turned 40 a couple of months prior. So, you know, it was really shocking. And, you know, I went through a pretty tough period of chemo and radiotherapy and double mastectomy and reconstruction, and so it's been, you know, a pretty long journey. But the funny thing, and this is kind of the thing I always thought would be the worst thing I could ever go through, something like that. You know, in my mind, I remember when I got diagnosed, and then I, you know, going through a hideous 2 week period of having all these scans and tests to see if it had spread or not, and you know, it's a pretty confronting time, particularly with young kids. And I remember standing in the shower one day thinking, how is it that I'm still like brushing my teeth, having a shower, you know, like everything is normal, but I feel like everything's blowing up. But it's amazing how, you know, life just goes on, and you think you think you'll explode when something happens, but you don't. And you just have to deal with what's in front of you. So as much as that was a very challenging period, actually, I am a firm believer that really good things come out of challenges. And I remember when I was having my biopsies at the time, the doctor who did them, and I was crying, she said to me, I know this is really difficult, but trust me when I say that you will find strength you didn't know you had, and that good things will come from this. And it was really profound because absolutely, really good things have come from what was not a particularly pleasant experience. In terms of, you know, I was so lucky to have huge support. And I decided to be quite open about it on social media because when I got diagnosed, my initial inclination was, oh, no, I can't share this. And then a friend of a friend who'd been through it rang me and said, hey, you've got an obligation to share this with people, you know, because you know a lot of people, you can actually help women understand how important it is to regularly check their breasts, and so I did, and it was incredible. I think the outpouring of support I got, you know, from friends I hadn't seen in 30 years, you know, guys I grew up with who now live on the other side of the world, who reached out and said, hey, I'm so sorry, and it was actually gave me so much strength. And my dad's oldest friend used to be a breast surgeon, and he said to me, you know, in his experience, the people who generally get better outcomes are those who have a lot of support.
Interesting.
And I think because so much of getting through it is mindset. Yeah. And I think, and it really helps your mindset when you know people have got your back and are rooting for you. So anyway, that has definitely been a low point in life, but definitely something that has, I would say, changed me for the better. And then obviously highlights in my life is meeting my husband and having my kids. Yeah, definitely. I just adore them all. They are amazing, really amazing. And I feel very lucky to have, you know, I laugh about Ben because he was a bit of a rogue in his youth. But he was, you know, I think, you know, when you're married, things test your relationship, and obviously going through cancer and chemo and looking like a little alien at points in that journey, having someone who loves you unconditionally and makes you feel beautiful even when you don't really look it is incredible. And Ben was such an amazing support through that. So I will forever be grateful that I married well. Thank goodness.
Were you born with that mindset?
You know, I think I was. And I was born, here we go. If any of my friends listen to this, they're going to go, oh my God, here we go again. Poppy in the incubator. This is a big joke amongst my friend group. So I was born premature at 32 weeks. So I was really sick. And so, you know, back 43 years ago, that was quite an early birth. And I was in hospital for a long time, and I had sort of medical intervention, blood transfusions rather, surgery on my brain, all this stuff. And so that's why I'm called Bridget, because it means strength. So my dad named me because of that. And so I think, my parents consequently were quite overprotective of me growing up, because they kind of were told that they weren't sure how I would go for the first few years of my life, and if there might be any damage long term, which there isn't, although I know my siblings, if they listen to this, will laugh at that as well. And so I think from that, and my dad always loves to tell the story, which is why, and my family call me Poppy, which is why my friends laugh about Poppy in the incubator, because they've all heard this story from my dad many times. And so I think, because of that experience, I grew up thinking, there's a reason I'm here.
Yeah.
I survived something. And when I got diagnosed with breast cancer, this was probably the moment that really killed me, was when my dad said to me, you had to fight for your life 40 years ago and you will do it again now. Yeah, and that was like, oh my God, Dad. Whoa, yes, Dad. I will, absolutely. Yes, I do. I think I've always had that mindset because, I was kind of told, you can beat things, right. You're resilient, and so I believed that, which just goes to show also, the stories we tell ourselves from a young age, how important those are. Yeah.
So going back to the breast cancer journey, did you change anything because of the experience?
I get asked this question a lot, and I often think, God, I didn't change nearly enough. And the thing is, I think, when I got my breast cancer diagnosis, I was working at Xero. I was in a job that I loved. There was nothing in my life that I thought, this is because of, I've got breast cancer because of this. I think for me, what I did realize was that I didn't probably take good enough care of myself. As women especially, we are so good at, I still joke about this, we live to serve. We want to help people, we look after our kids, if we work, we run ourselves ragged. And at that time, I was getting up at 5 a.m, going to F45, doing the lunches, dropping off. And my husband didn't work for himself then, which he does now, and so he wasn't as flexible. And I definitely found that I just never had time for myself. I didn't prioritise my well-being. I exercised, I ate well, but I just ran myself ragged. And I'd had a really busy period kind of the year prior through COVID. I'd done a whole lot of additional things just, to really stretch myself thin. And so when I got diagnosed, actually it was my amazing sister who paid for me to do a private Vedic meditation course. And that really that's changed me, because I completely understand now the importance of giving myself and my brain some respite. Nice. And so for me, meditation's fabulous. So I meditate twice a day. And I do things like, I have a whole lot of things built into my life now that I never would have thought I'd have time for, but now I prioritise. So I bought an infrared sauna. I have one every day, which is such a luxury because no one can talk to me because I don't want to come near the heat, which is great. And I don't put so much pressure on myself. Gosh, I used to always say yes to everything, and I'm still learning because I am a pleaser. I do have that kind of internal saboteur, and it's hard, but I'm getting way better at boundaries and realising that I've got to, if I don't take care of myself, it's that cliche we hear all the time about the oxygen mask in the plane, but it is so important. It is so important because ultimately you are the only person who can be in control of what you do and how you spend your time. And it's a responsibility to take care of ourselves. So I do it much better now.
If you could give yourself a piece of advice at the start of your career journey, what would that be?
No, it would be just chill out. Yeah. I used to stress so much about, what if this and what if I do that? And, I should do this and I could do that. And I think, what I've learned is things work out as they're meant to. Yeah. And I truly trust that now. And it doesn't mean that I don't have moments of, what about if that happened? But I really do think that things work out. They do. And it actually might not be the path that you imagine. My sister and I wrote a screenplay many years ago, and it was in development with South Pacific Pictures for 4 years, and then they dumped us. I'm not at all bitter about it. I think back and I think, that was a trying time. But what happened is that my sister and I, it was a really great thing for us to do together. And my sister has now written a book and is now about to become this famous author. So those these experiences all, they all happen for a reason. And doors close and other doors open. And I think just trusting in the process and trusting that things will work out as they're meant to. I really am a firm believer in that now.
Do you have to train yourself to do that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's one of those things. It's like a muscle, right?
Yeah.
And it is the setbacks that help you realise that, because something that I remember one time going for a job and I got down to the final two and I didn't get it, and I was devastated. I thought, this is it. I'm never going to get another great job. And of course, then consequently another opportunity came up, and it was even better than the first. So, I think it's just reminding yourself that whenever something feels like a dead end, it never is. There's always another opportunity that will arise, but it's about, and I tell my kids this all the time, it's not what happens to you, it's how you react, right? And we learn this, and I think the more you go through situations where things don't work out as you hoped, down the track they usually do, but it's hindsight that teaches us. So you can't really have that mindset until you've been knocked back or had a few things not go as you hoped, I think, yeah.
Nice.
I am hanging on to every word that you're saying. Honestly, it is so great. And we're very lucky to have you as a leader of such a large organisation here in New Zealand. Wanting to change gears a little bit into that world, into the world of SMEs, small, medium-sized businesses. For you, what are you seeing as the main pain points for SME owners and leaders right now?
Yeah, so something I didn't mention earlier is my passions is I do have a passion for small business, and it's not for small business as an idea. It's for the people who run small businesses, and because small businesses make up 97% of our economy in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So it's huge, and a quarter of our GDP. And we all know small business owners. My breast cancer counsellor, my nanny, my dad, as a GP, my friends who have their own businesses. One's just launched an amazing beauty product. They all these incredible individuals who are following their passions, but who also have to try and make a buck out of it and run a business. And it's really hard because often you're really good at what you do, but understanding all the business side of things can be quite complicated. So I do have a passion for supporting small businesses. And in my role at ANZ, I was business marketing. So in that role, I also focus on small business. And I think what I'm seeing at the moment is small businesses are still really struggling. It's been a really tough time for our country in terms of the macroeconomic environment. We're still in it. We're back in technical recession. Everyone I talk to, small business owners, they're down between 20 and 40% year on year, depending on which industry they're in. So I see them struggling, and it's really hard. And so thinking about the key things that are affecting them right now, one is cash flow. That's always a big issue for small businesses. And at Xero, we've been very open with the government and also in media about the need for small businesses to be paid on time. And often the problem is larger business not paying small businesses or dictating payment terms. And, we lobbied for the business payment practices disclosure regime. I've been talking with Minister Bailey about what needs to happen to support small businesses in terms of cash flow. And there are tools. At Xero, we advocate for things like when you send an invoice, add a pay now button or a payment button to your invoice, because it just makes it easier from a consumer's point of view to pay. So anything that helps small businesses with cash flow, because often they're so stretched. I have friends who tell me, I've been waiting 8 weeks to get paid from this really large company because that's their payment terms. And actually that sucks. That really sucks, because if small businesses aren't getting paid, then they can't pay their suppliers, and it's just this big spiral. So cash flow is a really big issue for small businesses. Obviously, things like access to capital is another big issue for small businesses. There are so many amazing companies that could grow and do so well, but it's hard for them to get capital. And so I think that's something in our economy that I'm really keen for us to be looking at more. How do we help small businesses access capital better? And also things like access to labour. It's hard. They are competing with big business for employees and often can't pay as well. We have seen wages growth go back a little bit for small businesses in the last Xero Small Business Insights. So that's going to alleviate a little bit of pressure on small businesses. But again, we've seen sales drop significantly for small businesses. So it's a really challenging time. And these are all the things that we think about at Xero and that we talk to the government about. And we are lobbying the government pretty hard on what they can do to support small businesses, particularly in national government. It's business is really important to them from a political standpoint. So we'd like to see some more action from the government.
How can larger businesses support smaller businesses? I'm a small business owner myself, and I think it is an ecosystem, and we all need to support each other. How do you think larger businesses can be better at that?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think it is treating small business suppliers really well, and things like paying them, like changing your payment terms. I mean, we have a call for a large business to pay small businesses within 10 working days, because that's what we do at Xero. We believe that's a reasonable request, and obviously the business payment practices disclosure regime is now kind of off the table with the new government, but I think that's kind of first and foremost. So we think about the number one challenge for small businesses being cash flow, then anything big business can do to support small business cash flow is really important. And I think also, it's things like mentoring. And we do see business leaders and big business involved in schemes where they can help and support small businesses. But the thing I find curious is that a lot of us, and myself included, I have had a small business on the side at one point, but we work in corporates that are, different, well-established processes, lots of resource, and small businesses generally are entrepreneurs who've gone out on their own, following a passion, who have to do everything themselves. And so I look at entrepreneurs and think, wow, you're amazing. I'm not sure what I can teach you. I learn more from entrepreneurs than I think I could teach, because they've done it really hard. It's really, really hard being a small business owner. My sister-in-law, she has an amazing design business. Most of her clientele is offshore, but she came around on the weekend for my son's birthday and was talking to me about how hard it is when you have to do everything, and it's really challenging. And I love talking to small business owners and entrepreneurs about what they do and how they find efficiencies. And I think it's incredible. Anyway, I went off track with your question about big business supporting small. But I think it's just being mindful of the importance of small businesses in our economy and how big business can help them survive.
Nice. Just going back to the payment terms, we work with quite a few large corporates. Some of them are 90-day payment terms, but I just get on the blower. Yeah. And they're actually really good.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. And I just let them know, we're a small business, we rely on that cash flow. Can we bring it back down to 30 days? 90% of the time they're like, yep, we've got you. So, it's...
Well, and that's great, right? Because you're advocating for yourself. And that's another thing for small businesses is don't just take it lying down. If something doesn't work for you, pick up the blower like you did, Ask exactly, explain why, why it would be really helpful to you if they could change their payment terms or pay you faster. And, hopefully, and that's actually how we'll get change, is if people are asking for it constantly, I think. So it's really important.
Yeah.
So well done you.
You talk about being a counsellor 90% of the time in your role as a manager. What tips do you have for those in leadership roles and how to be a better leader?
I think also this is probably partly because I am what you see is what you get, authentic. So my team, feel that I'm approachable. They come to me and talk to me about things. And I think as a leader, something I'm learning and I have learned is that it's important to have boundaries. I'm also a pleaser, and so I like to try and fix people's problems. It's the same with parenting. And so what I'm learning is, that's not my role. And often there are things I can fix if it's, something work-related that we just need to change. But often it's just frustrations or, someone with their own insecurities and how that's manifesting. And as a leader, I think it's really important to listen and guide. Like with children, shepherd them along, but don't try and do it or fix it for them. So I think that's something I've learned. That's actually through my business coach. She's helped me realise that I need to not try and fix things for people. So I think it's really important because, at the end of the day, you end up burning yourself out if you're trying to help everyone all the time. But I think also as a leader, like for me, authenticity is really important. And when I came to Xero, and it was the amazing Craig Hudson who employed me, he is also a very authentic leader. and I think the precedent was set, and it's really important to me to work for authentic people and to be authentic because, everyone, we have a saying at Xero, bring your whole self to work. And when you work with people, you are who you are, and whatever's happening at home does translate into work. And if things are not good at home, then it's hard to do your best at work. And if people don't know, they can't be understanding, and they can't, support you through it too. So as a leader, I think authenticity is really important. Having boundaries as much as you can and as much as is appropriate. And then also, for me, it's a mixture of optimism and realism. I like to be optimistic and inspire optimism in my team, but at the same time, I think being really clear about, the commercials and what's happening and making sure everyone understands. As a leader, I think that's your responsibility, to bring people on a journey and help them feel excited about where you're heading, but also help them understand what are the obstacles and what part do they play in overcoming those obstacles. Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
First question is, when you have been so accessible to your team, how do you set those boundaries when they are used to you being so accessible? The second question is, do they ever see you cranky?
So I'll answer the cranky one first. I don't often get cranky, but if I am cranky, I will tell them. I'll say,
Nice.
I'm in such a bad mood today. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I didn't eat properly this morning, or Jemima had me up, or Tallulah had me up in the night. So I'll tell them if I'm cranky.
Nice.
Or I'll
Okay.
tell them if they're making me cranky. Like, guys, this is making me really cross. And so, I tell them.
Good. Okay, so that's okay. Excellent.
Yeah, but I think because
Okay.
it's not. I don't. I mean, gosh, I probably do fly off the handle at home sometimes. I think the danger is if you don't own it and you bottle everything up, then you get home and you unleash.
Yeah.
And that's not fair either. So I think it is. For me, it's important to say, hey guys, I'm not feeling great today, because also if one of my team members is cranky, I'd rather them tell me than just be cranky.
Yes.
Sometimes as
For
women,
sure.
especially, we're cranky and we don't know why. We just are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think
Nice.
just say, hey, we're human. I'm not having a great day today. So just bear with me.
Yeah.
It's
Nice.
not ever an excuse for being rude, of course, but I think we can all tolerate each other because we are all humans. So yes, sometimes, very occasionally, cranky. And the other one about setting boundaries. So yeah, this is something that I'm still working on, to be honest. And I have an amazing business support manager. She's like an EA, but does more than help me. She's also really good at helping me with my boundary setting. Hannah, if you're listening, you'll know I'm talking about you. Because so it is just understanding what role you play in a discussion. I think for me, that's the boundary setting. So it's, what is my employee, what are they asking of me? So do they need me to just listen? Do they actually need me to take action? Or do they need me to guide them and help them see things in a different way? So rather than taking on what they're feeling, my first inclination always is, I feel terrible for that person. How can I fix it?
Yes.
So I have to really consciously stop myself now and say, it's not my job to fix it. I'll feel empathetic and I will say, hey, and now I've started doing something, a trick I have learned, is I start saying, what do you want from me in this conversation?
Awesome.
So now I use it with my kids too, which is actually working really well. But so what do you need from me? Do you just need me to listen? Or do you actually want my advice? Because sometimes people don't want your advice. And I have learned the hard way where I've given advice and I've thought, they didn't do what I suggested. And then I thought, because actually they didn't want my advice. They just wanted someone to talk to. So now, I start asking, what do you need? Do
That's
you need
brilliant.
advice, or do you just need me to listen? And if they just need me to listen, then I just listen.
What do you think people misunderstand most about you?
But I think probably something is, so when I joined Xero, I joined as the marketing director, and so so most of my career has been in marketing, and so I think people misunderstand that I actually have very strong commercial background and acumen. Obviously, I was a corporate lawyer for 2 years and a law degree, and because of that, I think and maybe not so much anymore, but when I first stepped into my country manager role, I think people didn't expect me to be as commercially astute as I am. People who didn't know me very well. And so I think that I like to surprise people a little bit. And, obviously as time's gone on, I know far more and more and more about the business. And we had, occasionally we have calls talking about results and stuff with our investor relations team. And the first call I ever did, I was, kind of nervous, wanted to make sure I knew what I was talking about. Then the next year I was like, seat of my pants, kind of just went through it. And my finance director said, look at you go. Like, wow, totally different from a year ago. So, I always knew the stuff, but it was the confidence to, because I thought, they think I'm a marketer. They don't know that I actually am quite strong commercially, some of these people. So I think, then I was able to kind of prove myself through just getting more confident in how I delivered information. But I think that's probably the one thing people underestimate.
When did you go, I need a business coach? How did that come about?
Well, actually, it was my, not current boss, but previous boss, who said to me, have you ever had a business coach? And I said, no, but I'd love one. And I did work with a woman for a little bit, and she was fantastic and super helpful. But I now have a new business coach, someone who's done work with us at Xero in a kind of a group environment. Julia, and she's amazing. So she's great. And the thing about coaching, because I love to talk, in case you couldn't tell, it's like being in therapy almost, because it's open-ended questions. The whole point is actually not for them to solve the problem, but for them to help you figure out what the problem is that you're trying to fix yourself. So it's really, I find it super useful to have someone who's not in the business day to day with me, but who can help me see the wood for the trees. Yeah, so highly recommend it, definitely.
Honestly, I could listen to you all day. It's very inspiring, but I am aware of your time. And so I want to ask this final question. It's one that we like to round things off with. It's, if you could thank one person, someone that has been influential in your journey, who would you thank?
Yeah, so my one person is actually my sister Rachel. She is an incredible human. I mean, she's 5 years older than me, so I grew up wanting to be my sister. Basically, she's a ridiculous high achiever, like super brain, and so for me it was always, well, I want to get first in class because Rachel did. I want to do this because Rachel did. And, it took me a while to realise I'm not Rachel, I'm Bridget, and I can do things my way. But she's amazing. So my sister is an incredible support. I was such a pain for her when I was little. I used to, nark on her about drinking and all these things. And, I can't believe how annoying I was. But probably when I was about 16 and she was 21, we actually started to be friends. And she's been my best friend through my whole life. She career-wise, she was a partner in a law firm, and I was in that law firm. And then she actually said to me, "Get out before the money gets good."
Yeah,
really good advice. So she's been she's my number one cheerleader. She, no matter what I'm doing or where I'm going, she is my number one support. She tells me, she believes in me when I don't believe in myself. Through my breast cancer journey, she literally started this entire community, #Team Biddy. Biddy's like a nickname. And at the beginning, I was totally mortified. She had merch made. The whole thing. She really went to town. But I realised it's because that was how she was coping with the situation. And she was just amazing the whole way through. With my career, I ring her and I say, "Oh my God, what do I do about this?" And she always has great advice. And she was a partner in law firm. She's done a master's in law at Harvard. She's just recently done her master's in creative writing at Auckland University. She came top of that course. Now she has got a book deal without even having an agent, a 2-book deal. She's incredible, but totally humble, and will be mortified that I'm saying this, and terrible imposter syndrome, but she's incredible. She's definitely I thank her for all the support. We fight still and then love each other the next second. And she's amazing. So I feel very grateful to have a sister. I always say to my daughters, you are so lucky to have each other, even though you right now kind of want to kill each other. One day you will realise how special it is. Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that with us and for sharing your story, Bridget. Honestly, so much wisdom, and we are very lucky, like I said, to have you leading such an influential business here in New Zealand, being Xero. So thank you for your input and for being on A Seat at the Table.
Well, thank you so much for asking me. It's been a real privilege, so thank you.
Xero.